Hi all, so this is a video on how to use the CAGED system to play arpeggios. So one thing I might suggest would be if you go to my website, you can download the material in PDF format that helps go along with this lesson just to make your learning experience a bit easier. Okay, so here we are. Here is using the CAGED system to play major arpeggios. Okay, so we're going to look at how to use the CAGED system to play the major arpeggio in all of the 5 CAGED positions. So we're going to be working in the key of C major, and the notes for the C major arpeggio are C, E and G. Now, as you know from the previous video, finding the chords, the open C is our lowest C chord that we can play on the guitar. So we're going to start with the A form, which is the first CAGED position that we get to. So we're starting with the second finger on the C root note, which will be found at the 3rd fret of the A string. So the arpeggio will go like this. So we've got C, E, 2nd fret of the D string, G, 5th fret of the D string, back to C, 5th fret of the G string, E, 5th fret of the B string, and G, 3rd fret of the high E. Now, there is another fingering that I sometimes use for this, which is playing the major 3rd. Instead of playing the major 3rd here, which is the note E, we could play it with at the 7th fret. Now, apart from that, it'll change. The rest of the arpeggio remains the same. So you would have. Okay. The next form that we would come to would be the G form. So we're going to be starting from the low E string at the 8th fret, which would be our C. So for that we're C, E at the 7th fret, G at the 5th fret of the D string, C at the 5th fret of the G string, E, 5th fret of the B string, back to G at the 8th fret of the B string, and ending on C at the 8th fret on the high E. Okay, so that's the G form. Next we move on to the E form. So with this one we're going to start with the middle finger on the 8th fret. So we have C, E at the 7th fret of the A string. We have G at the 10th fret of the A string. Back to C at the 10th fret of the D string. E at the 9th fret of the G string. G at the 8th fret of the B string, and C at the 8th fret of the high E. Next we have the D form. So we're starting from the C that's found at the 10th fret of the D string. Again, there's 2 kind of different fingerings you can use for this depending on what finger you start on. You could start with the middle finger, in which case you would have. So you have C, E, which is at the 9th fret of the G string, G, 12th fret of the G string, C, we've got at the 13th fret of the B string, and E, 12th fret of the high E string. So now the variation of that would be to play like we did with the A form. You could actually play the E. So we would go at the 14th fret of the D string to find the E there. So the rest would fall. Okay, so that's the D form, and then we're back to the C form. So we're working now from the C that's located at the 15th fret of the A string, and the arpeggio goes as follows. So we have C, E, which is at the 14th fret of the D string, G at the 12th fret of the G string, C, 13th fret of the B string, E at the 12th fret of the high E, and then we could also reach a G there, which is at the 15th fret of the high E. So you can see there with those shapes, then I can play the C major arpeggio in each position. So the A position, the G position, the E position. Oh, sorry. We have the D position and the C position. Okay, so let's just run through quickly a different key. So I'm going to do this in E major. So we're looking for the notes E, G sharp and B. Lowest E chord that we can play on the guitar is the open E string, open E chord, sorry. So the next caged movable shape we're going to come to is the D. So the D form is going to be starting from the 2nd fret of the D string. So we have the D shape arpeggio. Next is the C form, so starting from the 7th fret of the A string. Next is the A form, which starts from the 7th fret of the A string, but under the middle finger this time. Then we have the G form, which starts at the 12th fret of the low E. And then we're back to the E form, which is at the 12th fret of the low E, starting under the middle finger. So yeah, that's E major in all of the 5 positions. So I suggest you go away and practice that in as many keys as you can. Okay, so I'm going to show you quickly an extra way of practicing these scales. What I showed you at the first part of the video, I tried to keep the arpeggios relevant to the chord positions that we played in the first segment on the CAGED system. So I'm going to give you an example here in D, and in fact this is probably where this is most relevant, in the D shape. So if we're working in the key of E major, we would have our root note on the 2nd fret of the D string here for our D position. Now the arpeggio that I showed you went like this. But we could also think, well, hang on a minute, we've finished now on the D string, but we've still got the A and E string below it, so surely there's got to be some notes that we could play within D major there, and we can. So from our root note here, we could go straight over to the 2nd fret of the A string, which would be the note B, and then we could also come down to the 4th fret of the low E string, which would give us a G sharp, so our major 3rd. So one way to practice this position would be to go all the way up as high as you can, come down, back down to the root note, go below the root note and back up. So I'll play it for you slowly. It makes more sense when you hear it, it sounds like this. Okay, and the other way to practice it would be to start from the lowest key note. So in this instance we're starting from the G sharp. So the arpeggio might sound a little peculiar because we're starting from a different note here, but if we were playing against a backing track of E major or someone playing in chords from the key of E major, it would all make sense. So we would get this. So that's two extra ways to practice your caged arpeggios. And I suggest you have a look at all of the other positions. As I said, the D one is where it's most relevant because that's got the most notes that you can eke out. If I was to show you, for instance, the C position, so root note at the 7th fret in case of E major, most of the notes are covered, but we could go down to the 5th, which would be the 7th fret of the low E string, and back up. So I suggest you have a look through the other shapes and see what gaps you could fill in.